On today's Photo Moment, we're going to be talking about a little cinematography done with some cool vintage lenses and a video that I edited specifically to view on the iPhone X and how I dealt with the aspect ratio and the notch. Good morning and welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the first live 3 days a week, weekly, daily, almost daily, 3 days a week show here on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, youtube.com/PhotoJoseph. I think it says it right here somewhere. Yeah, it takes you there. Anyway, howdy. How's everybody doing today? Hope you all had a good weekend. We are going to be exploring this world of fun vintage Russian lenses, which I finally got adapters for. So you might remember, I did a show a while ago. We'll link to that up here. It was a disaster. I bought all these really cool lenses and an adapter, and then I started putting them together and couldn't focus any of them. Actually, one of them. I think one of them worked. I was so disappointed. And it turned out I had the wrong adapter. So these little itty-bitty lenses some of them need more space. So therefore, the adapter that I had the first time, which was this guy right here, let's go for a nice close-up view, this little adapter here, which is quite thin, as one can see, wasn't quite right. So once I added the correct adapter, which would be this one here, ignore the shiny silver part, it put in the space in there and it works. So this adapter we have linked in the notes down below already. This is from Fotodiox. They make all kinds of very inexpensive, camera gear attachments and modifiers. So that worked out really well. And I've been playing with the different lenses, and some use this one, some use this one. And I think, except for one, with an exception of one lens, this tiny little 28mm 2.8, this is one lens that I still cannot use. It'll fit on the lens, but I can't get it to focus on anything. So the distance from the lens to the sensor is not quite right still. So I got to now find if there's another adapter, because I'd like to have that. It'd be a wider field of view. The other ones are all 50s, which makes them 100s. So anyway, it was fun. So if you saw the video, awesome. If you didn't see the video yet, I'm going to play a little bit of it here. I'm going to show you some stuff on the timeline. Don't leave the video now to go watch it. We'll link to it at the very end. You can go watch it. It's also down below, or you can just pause this, go watch that, and come back if you're not watching live. But anyway, don't go anywhere. Just stick around. For those who are watching live, good morning, good greetings, and welcome. Who's here this morning? We got all kinds of folks in here. Sully and Co Enterprises in Detroit. Samir, Real House Films, Tyler, Jess. Jess is so glad I came back to this. Well, excellent, Jess. I'm glad I came back to it too. You were just telling a friend about these lenses yesterday. Fantastic. And a bunch of other folks here in the chat room. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in live. Okay, as usual, if you have a question live, type at PhotoJoseph in front of it so it shows up nice and red on my screen, and I know that you have a question, and I'll do my best to respond to it. So this weekend's little adventure, the video that you may have seen or will see later, it was two things that I wanted to do with it. One, I've been trying to figure out, I've been wanting to do something for the iPhone X that did two things. One, took advantage of the aspect ratio, which is a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. 16:9 is normal video, normal widescreen video. 19.5:9 is what this phone is, and 18.5:9 is what the latest crop of Android phones are. Of course, now nobody's got a standard, which is awesome. But anyway, I wanted to do something that filled the screen. Now, you may have noticed watching YouTube videos that if you have an iPhone X, that some videos you can pinch in on and it zooms in to fill the screen. But if you're watching a 16:9 video and you do that, then it crops off the top and the bottom, which sometimes is okay, but a lot of times it isn't, especially if the YouTuber has put text and titles and things and graphics on there and it cuts it off, and that's obviously no good. So I started running some experiments over the weekend, seeing what it would take, what did and didn't go full screen. Because what I've noticed on a lot of my content, which the streaming content is all 1080, that does not pinch in. Although confusingly, I actually have seen at least one YouTube video at 1080 that did pinch in, so I'm super confused about this. But then anyway, I uploaded a bunch of samples, and I uploaded stuff at Ultra HD, and then also at Ultra HD, but cropped so it was not as tall, so it was the right aspect ratio at 19.5:9. And when I first uploaded them, and I gave them time to process, some pinched, some didn't, and I was like, wait, but they're all UHD, and then I came back later, and the ones that didn't, now ones that did. It was like super confusing, but it seemed that after they'd been on YouTube for an hour or so, then it just always pinched in. And I found that if I loaded a video at the exact aspect ratio, 19.5:9, that it actually pinches in for you. It automatically zooms in and fills the screen. Bonus winner. So I'm going to start, let me bring up numbers here. I'm going to start by just showing you the math, so you can see the actual numbers that I did. No secrets here. Anybody can figure this out, so I may as well just share it all with you, hopefully save somebody some time. Oops, let's actually open the right app. And I want to show you the final resolution that I did, and then I'll show you how I set that up in Final Cut. Same thing if you're using Premiere or Resolve or whatever. It's, you know, it's just a, come on. It's just a size. Okay, Numbers is not wanting to launch right now. It's thinking. Anyway, once I figured out the right size, I actually did some tests at 4096, which is the cinema version, the cinema mode on the camera, but you can only shoot at 24p, 23976. And I wanted to be able to shoot at 60 because I like doing the slowdown, and shooting at 4096 doesn't really give me any advantage because it's certainly for this. Yes, natively the footage that I would be shooting, I'm then cropping less to look at on the phone, but I decided that wasn't worth the hassle. I'd rather have the advantage of being able to shoot at 60p so I can do slowdowns, which I did some of in the shot, in the little short film. If you watch that closely, you'll see that. Okay, here we go. So let's make this nice and big so you can actually see it. And yeah, so they're kind of scattered around the numbers on here, but 16:9 is your normal aspect ratio, right? So that's normal cinematography. If you're shooting 1920 by 1080, that's 16:9. If you're shooting 3840 by 2160, that's Ultra HD. That is the same. Okay. But the aspect ratio that I want to work with is 19.5 by 9. So if I punch in 4096, that's what the Cinema 4K is, then this formula here does 4096 by 9 divided by 19.5, and that gives us 1890.46. So call it 1890. Either 1890 or 1891 is going to give you the right aspect ratio. But I didn't need to go full width. So I went for 3840 because the iPhone is 20... Is this the iPhone's? Yeah. The iPhone is 20... No, that's not the iPhone. That's something else. I was playing with those numbers. Anyway, the iPhone is not 3840 wide. It's like 20-something. If I do 3840, then the final aspect ratio needs to be 1772. I have no idea what this number is in here for. I don't remember. Anyway, and then here, this was an Android phone because someone had told me, oh, the Android phones are 18.5 by 9, right? So I wanted to verify that, and that's what this is. So this is the resolution, 2960 by 1440. If I put 18.5 in, or if I put by 9, what does it add up to be? And it is 18.5. So 9 times 2960 divided by 1440 is 18.5. So yes, that in fact is exactly. I probably should do the math here for that, but you can trust me that it's 19.5 for the iPhone 10. Okay, so now we know the aspect ratio. All right, let me switch over to Final Cut here and bring up the settings. And here's my project, 3840. Well, zoom in. There we go. 3840 by 1772. That is the same numbers I just had here, right? Great. Now I got the wrong number, wrong page up. Here we go. 3840 by 1772. There was my my iPhone aspect ratio, and that is what I chose for. If I can figure out where I put Final Cut, here it is. Then that's what I chose for that. So that worked out really well. So again, project settings. And the way you do this, if you're not super familiar with Final Cut, normally when you make a new project, you can set this to auto. Here we go. If I go auto settings, then it's going to automatically build the aspect ratio and frame rate based off of the first clip that you drop in. But that doesn't work for me. So I need to go custom, and I went in here to full on custom in here, and I punched in 3840 by 1772. And my frame rate was 2997. Now I was shooting this at 5994, but for a 2997 delivery so that I could do a 2x slowdown and not lose any, and not have to interpolate any frames, right? So that makes that nice and clean and easy. Super. Okay, so now that's set up. ProRes, Rec 709, all good. There we go. Okay, so this is going to be, let's just do this live show. Okay, so there's the project, live show. We're here. So now I take one of my video clips. Let's take any old one of these here. Let's get something that actually you can see something on. There we go. And I add this to the timeline. Now, when I add this to the timeline at first, you'll see that it's bringing the footage in to fit the timeline, but I'm getting black bars on the side, which is not what I want. So what I can do, and I can do this at any point, but if I've added, let's just say I added a whole bunch of stuff to my timeline here, right? There's a bunch of shots on the timeline. They're all that way. I can select all of these and go over here to the properties, and here we go, type. So spatial conform. It's set to fit. I want to set that to either fill or none. It's going to give the same result here. I chose none just because then I know without question that we're looking at it pixel for pixel, and there is the shot. Now at this point, if I say I've got this shot and I wanted to, now I've got extra footage on the top and the bottom of this, I could go into the transform and I can slide this up or down. So I've got a little bit of gate in there so I can work with. It's called open gate. So I've got a little open gate room that I can move in here. I actually didn't for any of these shots. I just let them go in where they natively dropped and it was fine, but you can do that. So you've got extra footage on the top and the bottom. Now you can slide it up and down. So that was it for the actual just delivering on a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio. Do that, export, render off to YouTube, and perfect. And YouTube will play it at full screen automatically. We're talking the YouTube app on the iPhone. I don't happen to play it in a browser, but who does that? Then we get into the fun of taking advantage of the notch. So I said there were two things I wanted to do, and the second one was doing something with the notch, and I wanted to do something kind of clever with it. So I'm going to... probably should put a lens cap on this. Let me get this crap out of the way. I'm going to, for those of you who don't have an iPhone 10, I'm going to show you what this looks like on my iPhone 10. So you can see what I did with the notch, and then I'm going to show you how I did that in Final Cut. In the meantime, let's see before we do that. Any questions coming in here? No questions yet. Okay, good. All right, let me get this loaded up. Hi, go. There we go. Okay, let's see, we don't need to watch all this. Let me go. Well, here, actually, I'll play it from the beginning. Let me take the volume, not too loud. And let's get this thing in here, tilt it up just right so you can see it. Try not to get any reflection on it. This will have to do close up. All right, so when I hit play, it first tells up iPhone 10 video test. Okay. And then it's telling you the video is designed to be viewed full screen on iPhone 10. YouTube should have automatically zoomed in already so the tips of the arrows are at the edges of your screen, cropping nothing from the film. Let's get this up out here. And then make sure the notch is on this side. And go, oh, it's backwards, so I got to flip it over because I wanted the notch on that side. And now, see what I did? See what I did there? I took advantage of the notch to turn it into a little info panel. Let me back up 10 seconds here. Make sure the notch is on this side. And boom. Little tidbit of info coming out on there. That was the fun thing I wanted to play with. So you can see it's totally taking advantage of the full screen in there. It slides back and there's text behind it, just a little bit of layering in there, and then off it goes. So that was what I wanted to do. And it took a little while to get the notch perfect, but I got it. And it was cool. So let me show you how I did this. Now, I would love a way to kind of automate this. And I know that using After Effects or Motion, I could easily build this animation and use it as a template. But the problem is that if I'm going to do this, odds are it's not ever going to be the same twice because the length at which I pull that notch out and rest it will depend on what I want to put in there. How much text am I putting in there? How big is the text? Whatever. And then the duration that it hangs out is going to depend on how much text I put in there and how long I want to give you to read it. So two different things that have to change every single time. Now you may have noticed that the notch kind of bounced out and then came out. So it was like a little, just to draw your attention to it. And then when it came back, it went, So it did a little bounce and then back in. Kind of fun stuff. But basically, let me launch Photoshop on here as well. It took me a while to find a template, and I pulled something off of the Apple developer website and then just ended up doing a little bit of masking and stuff and came up with a PNG of the notch itself. So let's, here, we can just do this now. Switch over to here. So this is what it started with, this SVG file. You can kind of see, I'm not going to open it because it'll take a long time for some reason, but that's what came from Apple. So I took that, opened that into, get the right thing here. Here we go. Opened that in, did a little masking magic, and came up with the notch. So there is the notch. That is the perfect notch. It is, let me zoom in nice and tight on here. Zoom all the way over. You see that I have the little curve in there. This is all exactly right. Okay, so that's the notch. That's the notch in its closed position. Now I drew a second notch. Let me hide that for a moment and did the notch open. And I made it the full width so that I can simply slide this in and out to any size that I want. Notice over here that, let me zoom in over here to the back, pan over here to the back of it, that this is a straight edge. There's no curve in there. The curve lives on a separate layer. That's the notch closed layer. So that gets used in the animation as well. And there's a reason that I'm going to need both of these. And I think I'm not going to be able to show it to you. But the reason I need both of these is because when the notch slides out with the text on it, this gets a little convoluted. Because the notch actually exists on the phone, and I obviously can't have any video on top of the notch, imagine if my hand was the notch and the slide comes out, and the text is on this thing that slides out, suddenly I've got my text showing up with a hard line, and that looked really stupid. So what I ended up having to do is put a gradient, a little fade off from this notch out so that there was a fade of that text coming off. And that is what oops, that's what this layer is. Let me see here, the gradient. So that gradient is a simple little gradient from full to zero opacity so that the text sliding out of there has something to fade in and out of. And then turning all of these layers on or off at the right time is what makes this work inside of Final Cut. So let's go back over to Final Cut and we'll go to the actual project that I did. And Trevor is saying in the chat, lots of companies make animation effects for Final Cut. They absolutely do. There's probably already one that can be modified to do your banner. Probably. I mean, you know, there's all kinds of little simple bounce effects and so on. The actual animation is easy. It's just a couple of keyframes. Yeah, it might be easier to use a drag and drop on animation effect, but it's because the timing has to change and the duration that it comes out has to change. It seems like the amount that I could automate that is pretty minimal. Anyway, so let's see here. We'll go back to the proper project here. So here's the actual timeline. Zoom into this and get to the notch part. Okay, so here's the notch part. So you notice the notch exists here, right? The notch is simply a layer. You see it's right here. It's called Final Cut Pen Notch Closed. I can hide that, but that is existing. So even if you watch the video on a non-iPhone, during the parts where the notch animates, the notch is there because I need it to be there so that the animation looks clean regardless whether you're watching it on an iPhone 10 or not. If everybody was watching it on a 10, then it wouldn't matter. I wouldn't need that there because the actual notch would be there. But then there'd be this weird gap on people who weren't watching it on iPhone 10. Does that make sense? Anyway, so let's go back to this. So there's that notch. Let's see here. And then here's my text pop out. So let me hide the notch again. There's my text pop out. So you can see there the text animates out. So I'm going to hide this gradient as well, actually. Let's hide that. So there's the text sliding out. And this is a compound group. If I open this up, you'll see in here it is the text with the notch behind it. You can't see the notch. Let me just put a little color generator behind here so you can see the notch. Just drag something down here just so you can see it and make that a different color. Okay, so there's the notch. There's the notch, the slid out notch. And in this case, that's as far as I needed it, right? I didn't need it to come out any farther than that. But if I wanted to, then that's all I have to do. I go in here and I would take that layer and let's go into here and I'd say, okay, I actually want the notch to come out this far and the text is going to be a different place or bigger, whatever it is. I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to go ahead and leave this red thing in here. I'll just hide it so that it doesn't show up in the final piece and go back. And so now I have that little group which gets animated, keyframed to slide out. So right now, if we watch it slide out, you'll see, let's go kind of slow here, go frame by frame. You can see that it's, of course, revealing behind the line in there. But if you imagine now on a phone that actually, so this would look fine on a phone that doesn't have a notch. But now if I look at a phone that has the notch, suddenly, as I go through, notice the hard line from the notch to the text. That looked crappy when you're looking at it on the phone. So therein lies the gradient, the necessity, the need for the gradient. So now, let's go back through here and go frame by frame. As it starts to come out, there we go. There's a subtle little gradient, and that just made all the difference in the world. So that slides out. And again, this is all simply keyframed. If you look at this, you can see the keyframes, nice and straightforward. It's just a couple. So it starts in its native position. It pops out. No, sorry, it starts natively there. And then it pops out just to poke its head out. And then it goes back. So see, there's a little thing, and it goes back. And then it slides out, and it hangs out there until it's time to go. And then it pops forward a little bit more. And then it slides back all the way, and off we go. And of course, the Yuri text shows up, just appears on the timeline later on, so that while this is out, the Yuri text appears, and then it slides back out. And that's it. That is all there was to it. It just took a little while to get this all sorted out. Did the same thing over here at the end. So I know I didn't play this for you, but at the end I do the same thing. The notch comes out, and boom, it slides out to do a please, thumbs up, and subscribe. Curious point for anybody looking at this who's planning on doing a video like this on YouTube. You know how you've got the end screen cards, end screens, right, Ryan? End screens that show up at the end, and normally on my video you get the little four square that pops up and each one is populated with something. You can't actually do that on this video. YouTube says, oh, end screens are only supported on 16:9 video. I don't know why. I could do the cards. So the cards are the ones that show up in the corner there. If you click on the eye, that's a card. The end screen, though, is the thing that comes up in the last 20 seconds where it actually pops up a thumbnail, a subscribe button, and all that. Can't do that. Super bummer. So hopefully that'll change at some point, but there you go. That's how that works. So that's how all of that went together. I hope that made sense to everybody watching. Just Simply Brandon says, I'm watching on my new iPhone 10 and it's fantastic. Excellent. Love to hear that. Make sure you get a good impact case for it. Oh, Trevor, oh, I'm not going to drop this. I would never drop this. It's precious. It's so pretty. I don't want to cover it. Anyway, so there's going to be, yeah, and Ryan is giving me a hard time now. So there's that. I think that was everything that I wanted to show you in there. So I showed how to do the aspect ratio for the video, how it was widescreen. Talked about the problems with uploading to YouTube. Sometimes it pinches, sometimes it doesn't. But if you do the right aspect ratio, it pinches in automatically. The notch sliding thing. I think that was all that. Yeah, and then I talked about these. So again, with the vintage lenses, we will. They're already linked down below. I don't yet know how to know what lenses need what. I'm sure there's some basic smartness in buying a lens and knowing that you need this adapter for it. But since like this lens will fit this adapter or the other adapter, but I can't focus with, that's kind of a bummer. The funny thing too is you get a little camera, say you have like the GX85, nice and tiny little micro four thirds camera, and you get this tiny lens, you're thinking, oh yeah, I got this awesome little tiny lens, it's gonna take up no space, but then you have to put on a huge adapter like this, you go, oh, whoops. But it's all about the look, isn't it? So the video that you saw, incidentally, this video here is, and you can watch the whole thing later on, but this is not graded at all. I didn't do any color work. I didn't do any levels work, nothing. This is straight out of the camera, shot in the natural profile, so the most neutral profile on the GH5. And I did that because I wanted to see what the lens actually looked like. So the whole faded look, that's all in the lens. All the lens flare that you see, that's in the lens. And there's a lot of shots where there's lens flare. Purposely, you know, I'm shooting it and I'm getting the sun and I'm trying to get a good flare in there. So if you watch something like, let me see here, this, let me find the shot here. Let me open up the, is this it? Yeah, this is it. Let me open up the full shot of this. And here, if I just go full screen on this and play this, you can see as I'm moving it around, you get this hard line lens flare, which is super weird. And I'm just, and very washed out look, and there's in the shadow you get the less washed out. So that's the coatings or lack of coatings. There's that flare. Just trying really hard to get that flare exactly right. And I love it. I think it looks so cool. And all done in camera, no effects, no filters, nothing. This is totally, totally done in camera there, which I think is super fun. I always love it. I had a lot of fun shooting with it. Focusing, obviously, not easy. You have focus peaking, which helps tremendously, but it doesn't always work. It's like the camera just, because the lens is so washed out, it just isn't totally confident that it's focused. So there's a bit of guesswork going on, especially out in the bright sunlight. I was shooting mostly like this. A few times I went up to the eye, but I got it. There were no shots. Yeah, I ended up with no shots that were out of focus when I thought they were. There were shots where I completely missed focus because focusing is slow, especially the one that I used. Wait, is that it? No. I don't remember which one it was now. Anyway, the lens that I actually used, it was quite stiff, the focusing ring, and it's a long, I think it was this one, it's a long focus track, so it took a while to get out there, but it's so much fun. It's just super cool. I love it. I think it's awesome. So, there you go. What else? Everybody's saying the no buffering. Yeah, hopefully the stream is looking really good. We're using that Pearl today, which is just fantastic. It's been streaming really, really nicely, especially if I don't try to do Facebook simultaneously. And that, again, is just a bandwidth limitation. I've got to sort that out. I'm trying to do something here. I want to show you something. There we go. I am bringing this, I think that's the right login. Yes. Here I was going to show you the Pearl interface again. And we've looked at this before, and just to kind of give you a little hint on it, here's the live show that's happening right now. If I go over to the live panel, we see it. Oh, look, there's Ryan sticking his face in the camera. Here we go. Let's do this. I'm going to switch over. I'm going to pull Ryan up full screen on here, and there you go. There's your man, Ryan. Say hi, Ryan. Too much fun. All right, switch back to the other one. And yeah, so there's the whole switching setup. We'll spend some more time on this later. And of course, if you were going to B&H in New York on December 7th, that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about. So let's talk about these things real quick, and then we're going to wrap up the show. I want to make sure y'all know about this. December 7th, I will be at B&H. This, of course, is a free seminar from 4 to 6 p.m. talking all about live streaming. This is sponsored by Epiphan. We're going to be showing off Epiphan's hardware from the least expensive to the most expensive, or simplest to the most complicated configuration, which is super awesome. And while I'm in New York, The timing is going to change as of the beginning of this show, but if the URL will not, if you go to photojoseph.com/New York City on December 7th, we've just decided now instead of doing it in the morning, I'm going to do it after this event. So probably a 6:30 meetup. We're going to figure out exactly where, but 6:30 somewhere near B&H, we're going to meet up for an evening adult beverage and have some fun, hang out, and talk cameras and all that good stuff. If you're not in New York, but you're closer to Indianapolis, then I will be at Robert's Camera in Indianapolis on December 9th from 11 to 1 p.m. That is a whole Lumix day. I'll be there all day, but that's when my presentation is. I'll be talking about, we're going to be talking about the cameras, obviously, but this is more about my photography and cinematography in using the cameras. So this isn't a, come learn about the cameras so much as it is come learn about what I do and how I use these cameras in my work. Should be fun. I'm really looking forward to that, actually. And then we are going to be doing a little gathering that evening in Indianapolis as well. So again, photojoseph.com/IND. We will be at the Libertine Liquor Bar in Indianapolis from 5 to 7 p.m. And that is the plan. Okay, so that's all of that. Oh, and then one more thing. If you haven't taken advantage of this yet, this offer expires at the end of November, but there's a video, we'll link to that up above, but you can get a free pair of Bose headphones if you go to upside.com, book a trip, it's supposed to be business travel, but I mean, you can do personal. But you can book a trip on there and use the code Bose PhotoJoseph. And if you don't want the Bose headphones or you're watching this after November 30th, because that's when this ends, use the code just PhotoJoseph and you get a $100 gift card back. It's pretty sweet. I'm digging Upside. My first trip that was booked on Upside will be this one to New York and Indianapolis and then Sacramento before I go home. Yeah, big trip. Anyway, that's all that. Okay. I think that's everything. Tomorrow we're doing another live training, continuing on with Lightroom CC. We're going to be looking at metadata. That's for the IPTCs, rating, search, and filtering. We'll also be talking about the AI searching there. It's going to be kind of fun, and that is going to happen. That's happening tomorrow at some point. I have no idea when. But if you go to photoapps.expert/live, that you will see on stage, on camera there. And that's it. Whew, a lot of stuff. Anything else going on in the comments in here? Tyler says, did you figure out what variable causes some 69 videos to not go full screen? The only consistency after the video had been sitting on YouTube for a while is that it has to be bigger than 1080p, and I don't know how much bigger. Ultra HD seems to always go widescreen. I had instances where it didn't, but then after I let the video sit for a while, so maybe it wasn't actually done processing, even though YouTube said it was, then it worked. But that seems to be it. All of my 1080p videos, 1920 by 1080, do not pinch in, which is, I guess that makes sense, but they don't pinch in. But I have seen one video that did, and I wish I had bookmarked it because I was so surprised that it did, I should have kept it. But that seems to be the only variable of what I can figure out that's fairly consistent. Tyler says, some of my own 1080 videos won't go full screen. Oh, but Tyler, do you have some of your 1080 videos that do go full screen? If so, that would answer my query of apparently some are, but I'm losing my mind. But if they do, interesting. Okay. Let's see what else is going on. DWV says, you should reach out to Teradek as they are high-end streaming and have recently introduced H.265 streaming as well, has connection bonding to get higher quality. I love Teradek. It's not in here, I use a Teradek Video Pro, which I use when I want to do a live stream from the field. I take my GH5, slap a Video Pro on there, HDMI into that, put my USB 4G modem into that, and off you go. A total mobile streaming solution. Very, very cool. So that's a product that Epiphan doesn't have something in that space, right? They have stuff kind of below that and above that. And all of their stuff is more studio-based, not mobile-based. The Teradek Video Pro is a mobile-based workflow. I love it. I love Teradek stuff, and they have great hardware. So, yes, I'm very familiar with that. I did not know they've gone H.265, though. That's quite interesting. But the bonding, I'm very well aware of. The bonding, if you don't know, means you can take multiple internet connections simultaneously and pull them together. So you could have, I think, up to 4, maybe it's 3 or 4 cell phones doing hotspotting, right? Especially on different networks. I got one on Verizon, one AT&T, one on T-Mobile, and their solution will take those 3 connections and bond them together to give you more bandwidth and obviously more reliability, because if one of those services go down, you still got 2 more going. Crazy, crazy cool stuff. Ryan is saying if his phone had worked, would that have worked when we were on top of the mountain? Possibly. Although when we were up on the mountain, we were trying to use the mountain's Wi-Fi. Yeah. Okay. Tyler then says, I haven't checked them all. I know one of Peter McKinnon's 1080 videos did not pinch. Yeah, so I don't know what the deal is with the pinching and the 1080. Interesting, though, that some of them do. Okay, that's that. We're out of here, folks. You know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. We always love and appreciate that. Thank you for getting me past 10,000, hence the wooden play button. Brilliant. My wife's awesome. Okay, guys, take care of yourselves. We'll see you on Wednesday for the next show or tomorrow for a live training. Take care. Bye-bye.